Hello, welcome to my second Capture the Flag walkthrough video. Today we're going to be working on the 586 1 available on Vulnhub. I've been working on this one. It took me about 4 days. I just solved it a little while ago, and I'm going to take you through the steps I used to solve it. And so I already have it obviously downloaded. It's up and running right here, and on my Kali machine, of course. Now, what I did on this one, which I didn't on the last one, is I used Cherry Tree to keep track of everything that I was doing. So as I came across finding things, I was able to throw them right in here. So if I needed to go back and refer, I wouldn't have to run the processes all over again. So the 586-1 is described as a beginner slash intermediate uh, capture the flag challenge. And I have to admit, getting into the box was extremely easy. Did it in less than an hour. The privilege escalation is what took me the last 3 days. And on this one, I have to be honest, I did have to look up one section that I got stuck on. And I was in the right ballpark, but I wasn't familiar with the process that was used. But now I am, so if I come across it again, we'll be good to go. So as always, if we start out with the good old Nmap to see where our Linux machine is at, or our test machine is at. My Kali machine is 2.4. Okay, so 2.8 is our other VirtualBox machine. So from there, I did a standard Nmap port scan just to see what ports were open. And I don't like to run an all command on all ports because that just takes way too long. So we can see we have a 22 for SSH, 80 web server, and a 10,000, which is a webmin server. So at first glance, I thought, okay, we're probably going to be using some type of webmin exploit, but in fact, I was wrong. So if we look at the further Nmap scale on just those ports, oops, I suppose it helps if I actually put in the target address. And while we wait, all of this I put down in my cherry tree. So if I go to Nmap, I can see once I knew it was -8, this is my port scan. Down here is my command running the one we're running right now. And this is what it comes back with. The 22 is OpenSSH 7.9. TCP is Apache 2.4.38, and 10,000 is miniserve, which is webmin. Okay, which is what we've got back to now. So the next step is to take a look at the web page. And we get nothing. Check the source. We've just got an empty body tag. Check for standard files like robots.test, and we have one. Text, and we have one. I did run a Durbuster on this. I'm not sure if I saved it. No, I'm not going to show you it because it didn't come up with any information really. But if we look at this ONA that's in the robots.txt, now we see that we have this program running, which is OpenNet admin. If you look at the about, it'll give you some information about it. So from here, I went and I checked on some OpenNet exploit. And it came out with a couple. You got a command injection and remote code execution. And if you go in and you read them, these are on the exploit database. Um, so I went into my Metasploit, and despite being updated, it did not have this particular Ruby installed. So I had to install it. I have it installed now. Um, but if I go into the MSF console, and when I search for it here, it's going to come up. It is going to come up because, like I said, I already installed it. So if we use it, set our options. Basically, we just need R host and L host. And this is what I did within the first hour of downloading the actual machine. Set our own machine to come back to if we get a reverse shell. Okay, those are set, so we'll let it run. Okay, we have an interpreter shell. Okay, we're in the opt ONA www directory. We have a number of files here. Now I poked around in here a bit looking for exploits within ONA. Didn't find any here, but if I go into the standard web server directory, we see we have an HT password file. Go into HTML, and we see we have a reports folder. And here we have an HT access file. Now, we go back to our HT password. We can see we have a username and password, and the author has given us a clue here to say that standard dictionary will likely fail to use the following character set for this 10-character password, AEFHRT. So rather than saving the time, when I ran Hashcat on it, it took about 35 minutes to crack this password. But in the end, let's see here, it was 48 minutes and 40 seconds to crash it using Hashcat. And in the end, it came up with the password of father with 5 R's. Okay, so now we have a known user of Douglas with the password of father. So I'm going to exit our Metasploit and see if we can SH in as Douglas. Put in the password we just found. Oops. There we go. And we're in as Douglas. Okay, we still have no root privileges. We're in Douglas's home directory, which has got a bunch of crap in here that I put in here earlier trying to get some information. I can tell you when you go, I should have reset this, but when you go in, you're not going to see a lot of these. I mean, these were things I was trying, like MySQL, um, privilege escalation with erase, um, a password change.cgi, which is a webmin exploit, none of which worked, by the way. But these were a few of the exploits I had attempted in the process. And if we ls our home directory, we can see, make this a little better, we actually have 5 users, and it's obvious that the author of this particular machine is a IT crowd fan, which I am too. Okay, so if we do our standard checks, let's start off, see if Douglas can do anything as sudo. We see that he can run the copy command as gen with no password. This is where I ended up getting stuck, because I knew I could copy files as gen. I had no other SUID scripts. I tried running the commands to see if there were some set UID scripts that I could run, and they all came back with pretty standard stuff, other than games, animals, which I didn't really look at, but the rest of it is all pretty standard. Um, Going back to the web server, one thing I did realize that when I was in the shell as www.data, which is the web server process, and I was able to access that htaccess file, um, I was able, I'll bring it up here, to change, oh, oh that's the ht password file. Where is it? Oh, here we go. I changed the htaccess file, and normally just this top part, I added this file section, making the .htaccess file itself a set handler for PHP. And then I put some PHP code into the htaccess file. So when you actually bring up on our 2.8 server, if you bring up the reports directory and the htaccess file, it runs the PHP code that I put in the file. It's pretty neat. I wasn't able to use it to my advantage in this case, although it did give me a lot of information about the versions of MySQL that's running, all the processes. Someone probably would be able to make use of this a lot better than I was, but this was a road I traveled down for quite a while, trying to see if I could use PHP to access the shadow file. Oh, I didn't show you that. I do, on this user, I do have access to the passwords file, but not the shadow file. So I could see that, Roy, Jen, Richmond, Douglas, and Moss are our user accounts. None of them have the user ID of 0, or so none of them have root access. So what can I do as being able to run the copy command as gen? My first thought was that if I could copy a script into her folder that I could then run, which would give me her user, but that didn't work, because even though it was in her folder and I was able to run scripts, they just ran as Douglas. So this is where I had to look at some help. The solution involved SSH keys, which obviously I was familiar with, but I don't have an intimate knowledge of. But if we Okay, we're in Douglas's directory. If you notice, we have a .ssh folder which has Douglas's private and public key. Okay, I had a little glitch there, so forgive me if the screen looks different. So what I had to do was, I am in Douglas's SSH folder where we have the public and private, his public and private keys. So what I have to do is make a copy of the public key. I'll copy it to temp and call it authorized keys. Then chmod that file 777. And then use our sudo command as gen, which we know we can run without a password, to copy temp authorized keys to her SSH folder. Okay, after that I need to take both these files and copy them to my local Kali machine. So what I'm going to do here is open up another tab on my local machine, and I'm just simply going to cat out both, and just because they're simply text keys, text files, excuse me. I'm just going to copy the selection, go here, paste it, go back, do the same thing with the public key. And this may not be the easiest method to do it, but it works for me. Paste that. And we need to chmod the public key, move them into our local .ssh folder. There they are. And if we cat, we can see that it is the one we just copied, because these are Douglas at 586-1. Now what this should allow me to do, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of Douglas. And we should be able to SSH in as gen without using a password. Boom. Oh, sorry. Let's try that again. Okay, now we're in. Sorry, I had to chmod 600 the other key as well. So now we see that we're in as gen. Okay, I still have no privileges. And one thing I do see here, though, because I poked around for a while as gen, knew I couldn't really do much other than what I could do as Douglas, but I see that I have mail. So in this particular server, I know it's there because I was trying to access this earlier, and I couldn't. I was trying to see if I could copy. One of the things I tried to do as Douglas is I knew Jen had a mail file, and I was trying to copy the mail file over so that Douglas could read it, but I never, I was not successful at doing that. Let's try this. All right, here's all of Jen's mail. A few password attempts from when I was trying to get in earlier. A few other things. Message, because it was trying to rat on me, but it couldn't send to the root user. But what we want to look at is this very first message here from Roy. So, as Roy says, hey, he's going to be out of the office on Monday. So he went ahead and changed Moss's password. So when he get back, he's going to let him know that his password is now a fire. And if you've watched the show, you know what that references to. So now we know what Moss's password is. So I'm just going to simply SU into Moss here using fire. I see that I'm Moss. I still don't have any privileges. Let's see what he has in his directory. Nothing but this games folder. It's hidden too, so he must like to play games at work without anybody knowing. All right, a bunch of links to user games, except for one. Up Your Game. It's owned by Root. So, if we look at it, it's binary. But what if we play it? Would like to play a game? Yes. Could I repeat that? Yes. I'll have to do it again. I entered no. Is that correct? No. We appear to have a problem. Do we have a problem? Yes. Made in Britain. Who am I? I am Root. If I check the ID, my user ID is Root. I'm still Moss Group, but it lets me go to the root directory where we have a flag. Now this is also an MD5 hash, and I was trying to crack this to see if it actually said something, but I gave up on it. I mean, I'm satisfied that I got the boot to root. I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough. I'm planning on tackling the 586-2 server next to see how well that goes. All in all, this one I found pretty easy. Like I said, the only issue I had trouble with was getting the RSA keys or the SSH keys into Jen's folder. I didn't realize that was the route I had to go. I looked at a lot of other exploits. I looked at exploiting Webmin, MySQL, Apache. Like I said, I worked on this for about 4 or 5 days, and it was a little frustrating because most of the privilege let's try English. Privilege escalation techniques for Linux are based on being able to run things like find or less or more with a set UID or a poorly configured sudo that lets you do anything. And that wasn't the case on this machine. It was a little tricky. I knew it had something to do with Jen because of that fact that I had sudo privileges for Jen to copy, but I couldn't find a direct exploit using copy. I did stumble across the .ssh folder, and I knew I had seen public and private keys out there, and I thought I had copied them out of Jen's directory, because what I didn't show you was when I was Douglas, I was able to copy the files out of Jen's directory into the temp folder and read them. It wasn't anything really exciting. There was an audit.txt and a budget.txt in a reports folder she owned. The audit.txt is just the standard lorem ipsum filler material. Same thing, the budget.txt. It says they have no budget. Other than that, I mean, once I realized what I had to do by cheating and looking it up, well, I don't consider it cheating because I mean, I'm doing all this just to learn about penetration testing, capture the flag challenges, things like that. So I've learned that one technique, and now I'll know it for next time. I found using the cherry tree here to track everything I'm doing so helpful because if I had to go back at any point and say, gee, what did Etsy password say? I got the copy of the file right there. Or the sudo-l is Douglas, tells me that that's all I can run. Running hashcat gives me, the password. I ran this program called Linux Privilege Checker, which went through and found possible exploits. Um, OpenSSL, a MySQL exploit, an Apache exploit, which wasn't applicable. But I mean, I tried a few of these exploits to see if I could get in that way. I also ran Unix uh, privilege escalation check, and these are the main things I found running that, which most of it was not helpful. I looked a lot at cron jobs, seeing if maybe with Jen I could put a cron job in as user Jen. That would then, when it ran, it would escalate me to her, but that didn't go anywhere. Obviously, um, like I said, I was able to get PHP to run inside the web server where it wasn't supposed to run, which is a trick I'm going to have to uh, keep in mind for later because being able to use this htaccess file to actually put PHP code pretty much wherever I want. Because the thing about that web directory is if we look at it, it's all owned by root. So even in that reports folder, um, www data could write to that htaccess file, but I couldn't put PHP files into this directory. I couldn't just throw some PHP files in there and just access them from the web server because I don't have, even as www data, I didn't have write access to the directory. However, I did have write access to the htaccess file. So I could put the PHP code directly in the file like that. Um, I wrote down the steps that I needed to escalate into Gen, just so I remember it. So it really helps when enumerating, writing down everything that I come across. Even here's the metasploit command I used to get the www.data shell. So I hope you enjoy it. And like I said, I'm going to start working on the 586-2, see how far we get there. And after I have it cracked, I'll probably be putting it up for your enjoyment. See ya.